Very welcome to all of our attendees this morning. We'd like to say thank you for taking the time out on this Tuesday morning. We know with everything happening, load shedding continuing, that you still take the time out to listen to a health and safety talk is absolutely phenomenal. And we just want to say thank you very much for doing that. The tips to prevent COVID-19 is obviously something that has become a feature, but at the same time, as we've mentioned before, it is not just to prevent COVID-19, but also other occupational diseases. So washing your hands regularly with soap and water for 20 seconds. If this is not available, using an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Also ensuring that you avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands. Adhering to social distancing measures or avoiding people who are sick, and then covering your cough or sneeze with a flexed elbow or tissue and throwing that tissue into the bin. And the very final one is obviously something we want to encourage as much as possible, is cleaning and disinfecting frequently touched objects and surfaces. And then depending on your choice, as well as your policies within the company, you can then do your part to see if you can get vaccinated. So this morning's Toolbox Talk is about ergonomics. It is the second last SAFEtember initiative. Remember, the safety thought for this week, in fact, the entire month, is zero is no accident. And that is because we are really striving towards showing how important it is that accident prevention within any industry is a must. It is a vital part of occupational health and safety. For many companies, they feel that health and safety is literally just a bunch of papers stuck into a safety file to make a safety officer happy enough to allow you to work on site. And yes, sometimes it does feel like that. It often feels like all you are doing is doing paperwork and not really getting stuff done on site. Well, really, health and safety should be an 80-20 split. That means 80% of the time, health and safety must be monitored and supervised continually for 80% of the time on site. 20% of the time should be the actual documentation. Now, we do understand there is a lot of documentation when you get to certain sites, and with ergonomics, that is no different. There is a lot of documentation that goes into place to ensure a good ergonomics system should be in place. So let us take a look at the basics of ergonomics. Remember, the ergonomics regulations for South Africa has already come out, and this is because the minister, in terms of section 43 of the ARSH Act, where he is allowed to add any regulations, as we mentioned last week, they are allowed to add or promulgate in additional standards and regulations into the ARSH Act that must be adhered to. Now, ergonomics is one of those regulations that applies to every single company, because every single company has, to a degree, an ergonomic-based risk. So there is going to be some sort of risk, whether you're working in an office or working out on site. Even driving in a vehicle is going to have some sort of ergonomic hazard. Now, the reason why it is applied to every single company is because you want to ensure that every single person is safe from occupational injuries and diseases when working for your company. So when it comes to ergonomics, why do we say there's a lot of paperwork? Well, it depends on the type of work. Now, remember, just because the ergonomics regulations apply to you, even as plumbers, it does not necessarily mean that every single aspect or part of that regulation applies to you. As we mentioned last week, the regulations might only apply to a degree, or a certain part of that regulation might only apply to you. So if in terms of ergonomics, you are not working in specific areas, perhaps as a plumber, you never enter into a specific confined space, well, then the ergonomics will not apply in that instance. Perhaps you don't work at heights. Perhaps you're only working on ladders and scaffolding and not in cherry pickers. So really, again, it's very important for you to have your legal register, note down what parts of the ergonomics regulations affect you, and then ensure you apply that ergonomics regulation to your work. And we'll explain to you how this is done. But remember, if you do want a copy of that, the ergonomics regulations was gazetted on the 6th of December, 2019. That's the latest updated draft of the regulations. We do or are still waiting for additional commentary on that, because there's a lot of information that we had questions on, but a lot of this has already been answered. And if you do want information on that, please reach out to us. On the left-hand side of your screen is safety@ouropsa.org. info@ohss.co.za, or send me a WhatsApp on 071-875-2070. Just tell me what you want, send me your email address, and then we'll try and get that through to you as soon as possible. So let's get started with our Toolbox Talk for this morning, starting with what is SAFEtember. So because we're in the month of September, we obviously want to encourage everybody to remember the initiative that was hosted by FEM to educate the construction industry, and many of you plumbers out there being in the construction industry, on the most common accidents that lead to fatalities, as well as the ways to make the workplace safe. Now, this initiative draws attention to the high number of construction-related accidents. More importantly, it is there to educate both employers and employees in the prevention of such accidents. And that is where that slogan comes in. Zero is no accident. It is important, and this is something after these past 3 weeks of discussing it, that we firmly believe that every accident is preventable, and that an industry where zero accidents is achievable. So with the plumbing industry, this is something that IOPSA would obviously strive toward. Zero is no accident. And we're hoping that you can also take this on as your safety slogan for your company. So what is ergonomics? Well, according to the International Ergonomic Association, ergonomics is the scientific discipline concerned with the understanding of interactions amongst humans and other elements of a system. It is also the profession that applies theories, principles, data, and methods to design in order to optimize human well-being and overall system performance. So what does that mean in layman's terms? Well, to put it simply, ergonomics is the process of designing or arranging workplaces, products, and systems so that they fit the people who use them. So the goal of ergonomics is to create a safe, comfortable, and productive workplace by bringing human abilities and limitations into the design of a workplace. Now, what are those types of elements that we are looking at? Well, for one, we want to look at the awkward postures. Is there any work that has to be done by a human where awkward posture is going to be needed? Perhaps bending, compression, or contact stress, perhaps forceful exertions, insufficient rest breaks, lifting, lighting, noise, pushing, pulling, reaching, repetitive motions, static or sustained postures, as well as temperature extremes and even vibration. Now, how would you go about understanding whether your company requires something within one of these areas? Well, it means you need to do an inspection. You need to go through each specific task that is performed in the company, right from the top, from the CEO, all the way down to the last employee, as well as every person in between, which includes the person sitting behind the desk answering the phones, the admin personnel, the HR personnel, any person that goes out to site, or a delivery person. Each one of them might have the possibility to have a stress. Now, these stresses could be an awkward posture, and that is perhaps sitting for very long periods of time, and the seat is not designed to give you good posture at all times. Perhaps you just prone, like myself, to, after sitting in front of a PC for a very long time, you perhaps start bowing over and you start bending your back, and what happens is it starts compressing your spine. Now, if that happens for a very long time and you start getting very bad posture, you could start getting stress headaches. You could start, in fact, hurting your spine completely. And eventually you could have very dangerous possibilities of having something happen later in life where you'll have an occupational injury to your spine or your back that perhaps could become permanent. These are things that are avoidable. And the reason why they are avoidable is because there's something like the ergonomics regulations to help us design a system or put a system into place to fit the person to the actual task. Now, in Germany, a lot of companies do not believe in firing people. What happens is, generally speaking, when a person does not do well in a certain area of the company, then they will try and move them to a different part or a different service or a different area within the company to see if they can find out what the person's strength is and then use that strength in a different part of the company. That is also part of ergonomics. You see, you fit the person to the actual task, as well as making the task comfortable for the actual person. So again, are you able to bring your employees and you yourself, are you noting down any possibility of continuous bending, awkward postures, forceful exertions, perhaps any noise, pushing, pulling, reaching, repetitive motions? Are you noting them down and seeing if there is a possibility that this can be maintained within your ergonomics regulations? Perhaps you will still always need to bend, but are you doing it in the safest way possible? Now, how do we say you're doing this in the safest way possible if we're talking about bending being a hazard? Well, you know that working at heights is a hazard, isn't it? And you can never get rid of a hazard like that. You see, if you need to work at heights on a scaffold, well, then you cannot eliminate that hazard. But what you can do is make it as safe as possible to work at heights. It's the same with these types of ergonomics hazards. There are certain areas and certain times where you will need to push, you will need to pull, you will need to reach. You might have repetitive motions, but you can do it in the safest way possible that it doesn't have after effects or long-term effects on your body. That is why we are saying there is a little bit of paperwork that goes into ergonomics. Dependent on your scope of work and how much ergonomics impact you, you might have a lot of documentation that needs to go in place, as well as training and education for your staff on how to prevent ergonomic related hazards from injuring their body. So this is really the design or the work system module. Now, this reference work comes from Carayon and Smith in 2000, and then Smith and Carayon Font from the 1989. So the latest one of 2000 is the individual is centered in the middle, and then everything around them, such as the organization, the tools, the tasks, and environment, is fitted to suit the person. But remember that the tools must also fit the tasks, and the tasks must suit the environment, and vice versa. The environment must also suit the task. Then again, the environment and the organization must also be suitable, as well as the organization and the tools. You'll also notice that the tools must not only sort out or be looked after in terms of the tasks, but also be applicable to the individual, the environment, as well as the organization. And so this back and forth, by constantly checking whether each element or each part of the task that is being performed is going to have an aspect or an impact on the individual and how comfortable it is for that individual, as well as the task, organization, and environment around it. Now, how do you go about doing something like this? Well, it does take sometimes a specialist to come in and actually have a look at it, but oftentimes it's just common sense. You can just stand back. It does take time, however, and it is going to require dedication from your part in order to look at exactly each part, each tool, each task, the entire organization as a whole, the environment, and each individual. Remember, all individuals are not the same. And so one individual might be able to use a tool without being injured, while another one might be injured by the actual tool. So you cannot say that that individual is wrong. Well, you have to suit the tool to the individual. So this entire system or work system module for ergonomics is a multidisciplinary system approach. Now, what does it do? Well, it helps you to anticipate, identify, analyze, and then mitigate and review. So in other words, it's a holistic approach to when it comes to any ergonomics hazard. So it engages 3 domains, but the primary focus is on the system, because we look at your physical capabilities, your cognitive capabilities, as well as the organizational capabilities as well. And this is then integrated into your entire OHS management system. So this is something that you must understand. This becomes part of health and safety, which means if you don't have ergonomics currently within your system, it is something that has to be integrated as soon as possible, because it is the proactive management of ergonomics, not the reactive management. Reactive management would be years down the line, where ergonomics is eventually impacting your body and already causing adverse health effects, or perhaps health effects that are irreversible, things that you cannot change ever, because it now becomes a permanent disability for a person, which means it has to happen now. You need to start early in the program. Then it must be reviewed as often as possible in order to achieve your continuous improvement process. But here's one benefit of the entire health and safety itself, as well as the ergonomics regulations. It has a positive impact on the entire business. Now, why do we say that? How is it possible that you can do all this work, put in all this effort, and have a positive outcome? Because all it is costing you time, it's costing you money, it's costing you resources, and potentially costing you an additional amount of resources that you might not have realized you actually needed for the company. So it comes down again to, what is it going to cost me to actually implement this type of system? Well, for one thing, we need to first have a look at the ergonomics risk assessment. We need to understand why it's important for a company to look at risk. For one, you look at the task or activity related physical factors, cognitive factors, environment related, this is your physical and social related risk factors, as well as technology and tool related and the organizational risk factors. But look at what it does for you. Well, it's easy reporting of potential ergonomic risks to employees, because once you know and understand the actual risks that are involved, you now have a documented understanding of how your employees are going to be injured. Then it also designs a bit of a risk map, because this risk map and priority listing helps you to see what is going to be the most adverse effect on the employee. Then you can develop countermeasures, because once you understand it, you can then understand how to stop this from happening. And then you can put in a monitor and review plan. You see, these monitor and review plans are not going to be the same as your normal risk assessments. These could be 6 months to a year, or perhaps every 2 years. Now, when it comes to the actual risk assessment, there is your biggest benefit already to your company, because the risk assessment itself is automatically going to identify all the hazards and risks that are associated with any ergonomics. It is going to help you to prioritize these, develop your countermeasures or your mitigating measures to keep your employees safe. And then the monitoring and review is going to help you to make sure you continually do that. So there's the first benefit to your company. It's also a huge benefit to your employees, because now they know and understand that these risks and hazards in terms of ergonomics, which could affect them later in life, are going to be mitigated by you, taking it seriously. Again, all moving towards our slogan of zero is no accident. Zero now, as well as zero in the future. But then we can also use this to design training. So the next benefit of once you've got the ergonomics risk assessment with all its countermeasures, as well as the idea of how you're going to go about mitigating these, you can now use it to train. So establish a training matrix. The first thing you want to do is find out who needs to be trained and what they need to be trained on. Once you understand the individual and what they need to be trained on, you then need to find out when can this training happen. So you're going to train them on what? Well, on the ergonomics hazards and risks, the potential sources of exposure to ergonomic risks. What are the potential risks to health associated with the ergonomic risks? Now, that's a very important one, because many people will just put down in their risk assessment that overbending or bending for a long time will cause an ergonomic risk on the spine, on the hips, on the head, and then they mitigate that by saying you must only do that for a certain period of time and then take rests, or you need to bend down or have a chair to sit on. So they mitigate it, but they don't give the employee the information on the potential health risks of overbending or bending for a very long time, especially if it's going to be done over a prolonged period or repetitively every single day, every single week. Because over that time frame, months and years later, that is where these effects of ergonomics risks are really going to come to fore. So please include in all of your training the various health risks associated with each ergonomic risk. Then what is the procedure for reporting ergonomic risks? Is there a documented procedure? Is it verbal? Is it a WhatsApp group? How do you go about establishing whether you've covered all of your risks? In fact, what if you've done your baseline risk assessment on ergonomics and you understand to a degree an holistic approach or an overview approach of your ergonomic risks within the company, but then there are additional risks and hazards that might be understood? Well, how would an employee ensure that they give you a reporting of the ergonomics risks if they don't understand how to do that? So training is vital from the start of implementing an ergonomics management system right throughout to controlling and monitoring your ergonomics risk management system. In other words, continue to train your staff on how they need to identify risks and hazards. Then what are the precautions to take to ensure protection against ergonomic risks? These are the countermeasures. These must also be part of your training, and try and do it individually. Speak about the ergonomic risk, the associated health risks to that risk of ergonomics, and then what are the precautions to take in order to mitigate that. Then what are the mitigation methods as well as the hierarchy of control? Remember, we've spoken about the hierarchy of control before, where we will always look at the most effective way of solving a problem. And then finally, we add PPE right at the bottom. PPE is the last line of defense. In other words, we never want to give somebody PPE in order to protect them. There are so many other items or facets of mitigation methods that we want to use first and then make PPE mandatory. And so the last line of defense would always be PPE, but it is still a mandatory part of any ergonomic risk management system. Now, you can do this in classroom-based risk training or on-the-job training. You can also provide an assessment of understanding, and then please make sure you keep all of your training records. Now, if you are doing it in-house or if you are sending them out for ergonomics risk assessment, please ensure that you keep all your training records as part of your health and safety program. So for as long as you're keeping your regular health and safety, you need to keep your ergonomics training records. So let us come down to ergonomics and you as a plumber. Now, injuries resulting from bad ergonomics are preventable, and that goes along with zero is no accident. We really can achieve zero is no accident with plumbers. The benefits of good ergonomic practices ranges from reducing business costs, improving quality, and creating a better safety culture at work. Now, you wanted to know what are the benefits? Well, let's look at them for you as a plumber. Imagine reducing costs for the company. Is that even possible? Well, employees performing tasks under bodily stress can lead to ailments that can cost your business money. While the costs associated with ergonomics, like special chairs, workstations, can seem like a barrier at first, the long-term results are a healthier and more productive employee. We know this. This is obviously better for our business. A more productive and a healthier employee is someone that's not off all the time, that needs to be replaced all the time. And if they are productive, they are getting more work done. By utilizing good ergonomic practices, you can reduce your company's costs associated with lost work time and in the short term, as well as workers' compensation in the long term. So definitely there is a saving of cost. What about improving productivity? When employees are in pain, they focus on those pains, not their work. Studies have shown that the greater the pain and the more the productive plummets. So in other words, if you are constantly maybe hurting with back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain, because of the repetitive strain that you're putting on your body, well, then the more you're productive or productivity is going to plummet. Properly set up workstations create happier employees, and a comfortable workstation allowing good posture and fewer motions can increase work productivity. In other words, if you don't have to move for long periods of time to get things done, and you can focus on your area of work, but at the same time having good posture at any given time while in that working position, you will get a lot more done. Now, I know this 100% as true, because when I set up my workstation in order to do safety files, risk assessments, I had to get myself a new screen as well as a new chair, and even my table needed to be raised because I'm taller, and my chair needed to be higher so that my knees were in the correct position, which meant I didn't need to actually change the desk. I just needed to put spaces under the desk in order to raise it up a little bit more. And I have seen a markedly different aspect. Yes, I have been doing a lot more cycling as well. And I've got a cycling bike at the back of my office as well, just so that I can get on it every couple of hours, just to get the movement and changeover. And then every hour I take a walk around the garden, have a cup of tea, come back again. But that allows me to be able to do it. I'm not saying every plumber can do that. You might have to work for 6 to 7 hours before you can even take a break. But you need to identify where you can improve this productivity by making it more comfortable. It comes down to how much effort are you going to put into your system. But then it will also improve quality. You see, awkward working postures can be distracted and uncomfortable for workers. Poorly designed workstations can lead to frustration and employees who don't do their best work. If you look at some pipe work that some plumbers have done, especially if it's in a poor posture or in an awkward position, you can tell very quickly as an auditor, sometimes as a very good plumber, that plumbing is not right. It's not good. But do it yourself and you realize why it was done like that. Because they couldn't get there. They couldn't get their tools inside there. They couldn't enter their workspace, or there wasn't enough lighting. There's so many areas where it will just get left as it is because we do not want to improve the ergonomics around there. So having good ergonomic practices means workers are comfortable and productive, being able to deliver their best quality work, something that we should always strive toward. It helps improve employee engagement. When you invest time ensuring your employees are healthy and safe, it will be noticed. Maybe not right at the start, but it will. And when employees feel taken care of by their company and are comfortable doing their job, this will increase morale and reduce staff turnover and absenteeism. So this ultimately is going to create a better safety culture. Having healthy employees is your most valuable asset as a business. The accumulation of the 4 previous points will lead to your workplace towards better performance from staff and help foster a robust safety culture based on zero is no accident. So that's all we can tell you about ergonomics in this short period of time. Ergonomics is a huge area of concern for plumbers, and we want you to please take special note on how to design your ergonomics risk assessment when it comes up for your company. Next week, we are looking at the environmental safety aspect for SAFEtember, and our safety thought again for the entire month: zero is no accident. And achieving zero is no accident or accident prevention in any industry is a possibility. We just need your assistance in doing that. So stay safe out there, and we really appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next week.